Woman, a sniper sits in ambush waiting for a plane to arrive. And when a man steps out of the wing machine, the woman fires a shot. Then she picks up the spent shell casing, pondering her escape plan. Elsewhere, a man wakes up from a nightmare and drives off into the night, hoping to forget the horrific dream. He spends the hours until dawn by the sea, gazing sadly at a happy couple walking their dog. Later, he receives a letter from an unknown sender and sets off to the Marine Corps base. Once on federal property, he proceeds to the office of a woman who calls herself Agent Bartholomew. She knows that Levi comes from a military family and that he himself is an elite sniper with 113 particularly difficult kills to his name. After retiring, he took on private contracts, but he is currently bound by no obligations. Although he is ready at any moment to work with the Marines, he refuses any contracts because the military psychologist deemed him unfit for service. He is alone, no girlfriend, no relatives who might worry about him. The man does not use or experiment with substances because all that affects his accuracy. Levi could have appealed the doctor's findings, but sees no point in doing so, nor, in fact, in many other things. Meanwhile, at the cemetery of a small Lithuanian village, a man is playing Bach on the accordion when his daughter approaches. She is the sniper we've already seen, named Drasa. Today is the memorial day for their mother and wife, and they always try to meet at her grave. The father has heard that Drasa took a contract to eliminate a Belarusian oligarch, and the daughter admits it was a hard job because the man she killed had 4 children. But her father reminds her that the oligarch had been selling phosphorus bombs and anti-personnel mines. You can't possibly count the number of children who lost their health or even their lives because of that man. Drasa hands her father a shell casing, which he places in a wallet with several others, convinced that his daughter is doing the right thing. He asks Drasa to stay with him for a couple of weeks, but she has already received orders to report to Moscow tomorrow. Her father doesn't like it. After all, she's Lithuanian and doesn't have to obey. He is terminally ill and doesn't want to die in terrible pain. So he has decided to end his life on Valentine's Day. He asks her, wherever she may be on February 14th, to light a candle for him, look at Orion, and say goodbye. Sometime later, Levi flies off on yet another assignment. Ahead lies a restricted zone where his plane cannot go. To reach his post, he will have to travel on foot, 38 kilometers north. They take away his gadgets and watch, but hand him a sealed envelope containing the mission. Levi parachutes and soon lands in a forest. He treks through the mountains, arriving at his destination, where he is greeted by a soldier who is supposed to hand over the post to him. Jasper is very glad to see him, having spent a whole year there on his own. Levi admits he knows absolutely nothing about the mission, not even what country he's in. Jasper, in turn, cannot reassure him. He's in the same predicament. Soon the soldier leads him to a tower that will serve as Levi's living quarters for the coming year. It is fully autonomous, equipped with solar panels, a generator, and rainwater collection. Game is plentiful in the surrounding area, and there's even a garden. On the opposite side of the gorge stands an identical outpost belonging to the Eastern Bloc. Levi cannot get there, even if he wants to. The slopes of the ravine are mined and bristling with traps of all kinds, so each side simply does its own job. The work here is simple and suitable for a qualified technician. He must conduct a daily patrol of the western border, inspecting fortified defense points. A connection check with the outside world happens every 30 days. Satellite transmitters are installed all along the border to shield the gorge by sending false signals. Consequently, this place is invisible to spy satellites and reconnaissance drones. There is no communication with the outside world. In a worst-case scenario, there is a panic button that will alert the authorities if something happens. If all systems fail or there's an invasion, the system will initiate the stray dog protocol. Justin doesn't know what that is, but if Levi hears sirens, the best course is to run far away. He thinks it's all tied to the Cold War because each year someone from the west patrols this side while someone from the east watches their own side of the gorge. And for 75 years, no one has ever discovered what's actually inside the gorge. The main objective is not to let whatever's in the gorge get out. A year ago when he took over, Justin also thought his predecessor had gone crazy, but he got to see something the guards dubbed Hollow Men. Justin doesn't know what they really are, though the phrase is taken from a poet's work. Justin knows that in the late 40s, 3 battalions, 2,000 and 4,000 cavalrymen were sent into the gorge to clear it out, but none returned. After that, they switched to a containment system. Justin learned all of this from his predecessor's stories, which may well be a broken telephone version. But the soldier himself believes the gorge is an entrance to hell, and they are guarding the gates. The men bid farewell, and Justin heads to the pickup point where a helicopter is supposed to collect him. Soon, the aircraft appears in the sky and drops a cable. But as Justin climbs aboard, the pilot shoots him and throws his body down. Then he reports to Bartholomew that the rotation is complete. A month passes. Levi diligently fulfills his duties, going on daily patrols, checking all the weapons, ensuring the mines are ready, then radioing his superiors to report that everything is running smoothly. In his free time, he reads. There are plenty of books in the tower after all. One day he notices a few quotations on the wall, presumably left by his predecessors, dated from past decades. Sometimes he tends the garden, harvesting the last of the season's produce, and one day he hears the sound of a saw from the other side of the gorge. Looking through binoculars, he sees a woman. Drassa also tries to make out her colleague across the way, but when she sees him move away, she returns to her task. That night, Levi wakes from his usual nightmare, jumps up, and grabs his rifle, not realizing he has broken a glass and cut his foot on the shards. Bloody footprints on the floor help him come to his senses. He picks up his binoculars and sees Drassa, who also isn't sleeping. But when she notices his gaze, she extinguishes her candles and moves deeper into her room. Another month goes by. Drassa celebrates her birthday and then starts watching Levi. Bored, she decides to play a prank. She fires a shot into the air to get his attention. When he reaches for his binoculars, she holds up a sign asking for his name. He warns her that contact is forbidden, but Drassa isn't bothered. She writes her own name and, since it's her birthday, declares she'll do as she pleases. Levi laughs, writes down his name, and suggests they have a drink in her honor. The woman then turns on music and asks him to dance with her, but Levi insists he has no idea how to dance. Drassa doesn't believe him. Surely there must be something he's good at. Levi confesses that he's a good sniper. Drassa wants proof. Levi places his flask on the edge of the parapet, planning to shoot it, but Drassa knocks it off first with her own shot. In response, Levi ruins her bottle of wine with a bullet. Drassa then balances another bottle on her head, showing that he can keep practicing. But suddenly, she loses her balance for a moment and, startled, takes down the bottle, motioning for him to look below. Levi peers into the darkness and soon spots something moving, a strange creature resembling a living tree. He opens fire just as one of these beings steps on a mine and blows up, but others continue climbing the wall. Drassa now opens fire as well, helping Levi shoot down the monsters. Together, they take out several creatures, after which silence falls. But as soon as Drassa steps back from the edge, hands with branch-like fingers grip the ledge and a woody monster crawls over. It keeps moving towards the woman, ignoring her gunfire, and Levi covers her with a shot from his rifle. He immediately realizes that hollow men are also attacking her side of the gorge. So now he fires across to her side, helping the woman fight them off. Mines explode on the edge of the gorge, throwing Drassa aside, but Levi covers her with machine gun fire, just as she'd done for him a moment ago. Finally, the assault ends. They sit in the darkness for a long time, trying to regain their composure. Then Drassa tends a wound she hadn't noticed in the heat of battle and writes that this was the coolest birthday ever. In the morning, Levi inspects his side of the gorge, welding over gaps in the defenses caused by the night's battle and laying more mines. Suddenly, a drone emerges from the gorge below, prompting an immediate reaction from the turret on Levi's side. The man watches anxiously to see what will happen next, but the drone flies away and the gun goes still. Another month goes by. Levi does chores in his spare time, while Drassa plays the piano. Then one day, Drassa sees a lit Christmas tree across the gorge and a holiday message for her. They both build snowmen and name them after each other, as if growing closer that way. They even start playing chess together, calling out their moves to each other in turn. One evening, the pair sets up a real drum battle, using anything they can find as percussion instruments. February arrives. Levi wakes once again from a nightmare and goes out onto the balcony, where the wind is howling. He realizes Drassa is also awake. In the morning, he writes her a note, but she doesn't respond because it's February 14th. She turns on a Bach record and cries, remembering her father. When Levi notices this, he asks what happened. Drassa confides that she's having a difficult day and suddenly wishes he were with her. Levi can't sleep all night, pondering the situation. Then he reads a quote on the wall about the courage of those who've come far and sets to work building a complicated contraption. In the morning, Drassa sees Levi firing a grenade across to her shore with a rope attached, thus setting up a makeshift cable crossing. She runs into the woods, finds the smoldering device, extinguishes it, and ties the rope to a tree. Then she spots a note with an invitation to dinner. Levi tidies himself up and gathers a bouquet of wildflowers, then launches himself off his side of the gorge, zipping along the rope. But he slows before reaching Drassa's edge and must haul himself along by hand, which isn't easy. Drassa invites him to have rabbit pie and he offers her the flowers. He can't help expressing his admiration. Up close, she's even more beautiful. She suggests he wash up in the sauna first, since he's all sweaty from crossing over. Levi laughs, explaining that he miscalculated the tension on the line. Drasa promises to bring him some clothes left behind by previous occupants, but teases him by hanging them a bit too far from the sauna, forcing him to run around naked to get dressed. Later, they have lunch and speculate about where in the world they might be. Both of them were drugged during transport, so they have no idea. Levi can say one thing for sure: they're in the northern hemisphere. He then admits he's a sniper. Immediately, Drasa realizes who he is. His shot in Yemen was the pinnacle of marksmanship. Levi shifts the conversation back to their location. Drasa explains that her father advised her not to learn the whole truth. Levi talks about his childhood in Oregon, where his father taught him how to shoot. That night, they turn on music, and Drasa manages to make Levi dance, noting that he lied about not knowing how. He's very graceful. The two grow closer. Afterward, they talk about everything, eager to learn more about each other. Levi confesses that he wrote a poem dedicated to her, but refuses to recite it. In the morning, Levi says goodbye to Drasa, admitting that her pie was simply divine, then heads back across the gorge. But as he nears his side, a mine goes off, the rope snaps, and he plummets into the gorge. Drasa immediately grabs her weapon and a parachute and jumps after him. But dense fog hides a raging river below, and she plunges into it, quickly sinking. She barely manages to cut herself free from the parachute lines, losing her gear, and struggles to survive by clinging to a fallen tree. Meanwhile, Levi hangs unconscious upside down in one of the gorge's enormous trees, unaware that its branches are coming to life, turning into a strange insect-like creature that's about to devour him. Fortunately, he revives and manages to shoot the monster. Drasa hears the shot and hurries toward the sound, while Levi falls from the tree. Hitting the roots, he realizes they are awakening and trying to pull him underground, apparently intending to feast on him. A gigantic, maw-like opening is about to close over him when Drasa arrives and opens fire, causing the roots to retreat. Levi thanks her for coming to his rescue, but she's sure he would have done the same for her. They wander through the foggy forest, discussing how to get out of there, when suddenly a horse made of tangled roots charges at them. Riding it is a strange, plant-like humanoid. The figure dodges their bullets and attacks Drasa, while Levi fights off the horse. The pair barely manages to defeat these bizarre creatures. Levi speculates that living humans serve as food for these plant monsters. Then Drasa realizes she lost their rope in the river, and now it's unclear how they can climb back up. She suggests following the river, hoping there's an exit somewhere. Levi points out the remnants of a uniform on the fallen rider. It's all post-war attire from the 1940s. These must be the remains of those cavalrymen who vanished. They set off, marveling at the strange, terrifying tangles of trees and shrubs that clearly incorporate human shapes. Before long, they come upon partially demolished structures, apparently damaged by seismic activity. They enter a building that looks like a church and go inside. The pews are still there, and here and there they see human remains on them. Levi detects a familiar odor and deduces these people died from cyanide poisoning. But how could that have happened? Drasa begs him to leave as soon as possible when suddenly huge spiders drop down on them from above. They shoot their way out and sprint for the door just as the mummified corpses on the pews start to move. Drasa fires a grenade launcher at the church wall. It catches fire and they manage to escape this nightmare. They try to hide, but it's impossible. Monsters are everywhere. Drasa suggests they stick close to the gorge wall, where at least no one can attack from behind. They run there and find an entrance to a more or less intact hangar where they can barricade themselves and get a little rest. Soon they realize this is a base built into the rock of the gorge. They discover an old laboratory full of chemicals and compounds. Searching it, Levi finds a reel of film in a generator that still works, despite all the years. Lights come on, Levi finds a projector, and they watch a film in which a lab worker describes a secret coalition of Eastern and Western nations. Near the end of World War II, while Oppenheimer was creating the nuclear bomb, they were developing a chemical warhead of unprecedented destructive power in this lab. Suddenly, a severe earthquake struck the gorge, destroying the lab. The resulting biochemical contamination fused human DNA with plants, animals, and even insects, turning people into monsters. However, some individuals turned out to be more resilient to the infection. If no mutation shows up within 5 days, a person is immune. The woman on the film shows frightening changes on her body, while Drasa notices a sealed ampule containing some solution. Meanwhile, the scientist continues, saying humanity might be spared only because the gorge is in an impassable region. She begs forgiveness and hopes God will have mercy on them. The film ends. The pair moves on and soon finds a room with modern equipment that clearly didn't exist in the mid-20th century, so the lab must have operated until recently. But why not simply bomb it to eradicate the threat to humanity? Liam starts up a computer and reads the name of a militarized organization, Dark-like. He realizes they weren't working for the military, but for a private company, evidently a very wealthy and powerful one. He knows Darklike's drones collect hybrid specimens worldwide, so the company must be creating super soldiers and protecting its secrets. Levi then sees a program name, Stray Dog, and recalls Jared's warning. He realizes it's the code name for a thermal bomb that should have destroyed the Gorge in the event of a leak, but apparently the earthquake damaged it. Levi admits that if they don't make it out, it was still worth it because he got to meet her. They prepare for the journey ahead when Drasa realizes she forgot her bag by the entrance, where all their ammo is. They have no choice but to go back. Tossing a smoke grenade for cover, they head outside. Drasa retrieves the bag, but out of the haze, a long root lashes out, grabbing her leg and dragging her away at high speed. It whips past Levi. Some root rider on horseback has seized the woman, carrying her off into the darkness. She tries to cut the root away, but she's slammed into something and loses consciousness. Levi goes after her and soon finds a ruined missile silo. Drasa comes to her senses to find herself hung up in a room with a hollow man peering at her, evidently deciding where to start eating. She manages to free herself and fight back, but the monster is very strong. Drasa sets it on fire with a log from the fire, but it nearly overpowers her. Then Levi appears, saving her. He examines the Hollow Man and realizes it's the remains of one of his predecessors, the very officer who had named the creatures Hollow Men. They leave and soon discover damaged rockets and a crowd of mutated humans, their fusion with plants turning the space into a web-like nightmare. Drasa and Levi pick their way past, but one plant human grabs Drasa and Levi struggles to free her. They flee, shooting at the living tendrils until Drasa fires a grenade, setting the half-plants ablaze so they can escape. Before long, they find a still functional jeep fitted with a powerful winch and drive it to the cliff face. While Drasa fights off Hollow Men, Levi uses the winch to fling the cable up top, and the vehicle starts pulling them upward. But the monsters won't quit. The entire way up, they have to fight Hollow Men, nearly falling into the abyss. When they're just a few meters from the top, Levi almost slips but manages to grab hold of the frame. He punctures the gas tank so fuel drenches the creatures still clinging to the rope. Levi ignites the fuel and the jeep plunges down, knocking the Hollow Men loose, while Levi and Drasa dangle off the cliff, then cut the rope. They manage to reach Drasa's tower. After taking a moment to compose themselves, they consider what to do next. If they're infected, there's only one choice: go back down, but they need to wait 5 days first to see if symptoms appear. Levi confesses that he was sent here because he has no one, so no one would look for him. But now everything has changed. Drasa suggests fleeing to France, but Levi believes they must destroy the Gorge first. He crosses back over and radios his superiors, reporting that everything is normal. However, the Dark-like drones have detected activity from the Eastern Observer, so Bartholomew orders Levi's elimination. He has no idea she's watching him on a secret video feed and is fully informed of his journey below. She orders a helicopter to be prepared. The next morning, Levi and Drasa make their usual rounds when a helicopter appears. They hide in the forest, but drones find them. The two try to break out of the kill zone of the Gorge's missiles, but the drones open fire, wounding Levi. Drasa manages to shoot down the metal hunters. Finally, they exit the danger area, while Bartholomew sees the Buddha quote Levi has left on the wall and realizes it's time to flee. But Levi and Drasa open fire, triggering a chain reaction of explosions that expose the Gorge to spy satellites. Then the stray dog protocol kicks in. The helicopter takes off but is caught in the blast. Levi is also knocked into the river by the shockwave and disappears into the current. Drasa waits 6 days for him in a nearby cave, then leaves. Sometime later, she settles in France and finally opens his last letter, which contains the poem he wrote for her. She cries, remembering Liam. She begins working in a cafe, and one day she suddenly sees Liam at a table. Drasa holds back from running straight into his arms and simply asks why he's been gone so long. Liam admits he was badly injured. Now, though, he's ready to work in her kitchen. They kiss. The film aspires to be an intellectual horror, a romantic melodrama, an action blockbuster, and a sci-fi horror all at once, but in the end, never decides on which cliff's edge to call home.